listening to the Viva El Birdos podcast with Jake Wood, Gabe Simons, and Scott Plaza. The Viva El Birdos podcast.
Welcome into the Viva El Birdos podcast. As always, I am your host, Jake Wood, and I am flying solo today. Our fellow writers, Gabe Simons and Scott Plaza, unfortunately could not make it today, but just a quick follow-up. If you enjoy this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of your favorite audio streaming platforms. Today is a very awesome day for me personally because I get to talk to one of my personal heroes, somebody that I look up to greatly, not only in the radio world but also in the baseball world. Today our special guest is one of the most recognizable voices in Cardinals Nation, and Cardinals fans far and wide have heard his iconic voice. If they've ever taken in a game at Busch Stadium or listened to KC95, he is the public address announcer for the St. Louis Cardinals, John "U-Man" Ulett.
Hey,
John,
Joe,
thank you so much
you.
for joining us. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today, sir?
Great. Thank you for that intro. It's awesome. I'm doing all right. Just got done running, and it was 86 and humid, but you can't tell that I'm loaded with sweat here. But I got the camera that's not showing that too much. So,
Oh man, you're preaching to the choir. I work for Amazon, so trust me, I spend all day long outside sweating my butt off. But go from Amazon to Cardinals baseball, I wanted to ask you, how did you get your start not only at KC but also with the Cardinals? When did that opportunity come calling? And just kind of, can you tell us that story about how that all came about?
okay. Well, there are two separate stories, really. I mean, KC, I went to Broadcast Center, which was a broadcast school that existed here in St. Louis for a long time. I don't think they're around anymore. But I was one of their first students back in 1973. I was a sophomore in high school, and for whatever reason, they accepted me at 16 years old. And that's where my journey started. They were based out there in Clayton, and I would take the public transportation to high school, and then from high school, I'd take it all the way downtown and get on the transfer bus downtown and head all the way back out to Clayton and go to Broadcast Center. And within about, maybe a year, next thing I knew, I was getting job offers. And one came from KEZK in St. Louis. They were putting KEZK radio on the air in 1974, and they were looking for a weekend guy. And I thought, well, sure. I mean, it was elevator music, but I didn't care. It was an opportunity to get into
Right.
business. And so next thing I knew, they came to me and says, hey, actually, we need somebody who can work 7 to midnight, Monday through Saturday. And I was a senior in high school at this time. And so they said, well, if your school teachers allow it and your parents allow it, we'd love to have you do it. So that was my first full-time job. So one thing led to another. I went to another station for a little while here in the St. Louis area, and then went to Jefferson City. And then while I was in Jefferson City working at an AM/FM combination there, Ron Stevens, who was the program director at KC95, was looking for a trained announcer, because up to that point, KC announcers were just like people who just happened to live in the area. They had no training whatsoever as far as radio goes. So I was the first quote unquote professionally trained broadcaster hired at KC in 1976. And that's how that journey started. Actually, the day I was supposed to start, I broke my leg playing softball in Forest Park
Wow.
the day before. So I couldn't show up for work my first day. And the general manager at the time said, hey, if the guy can't show up for his first day of work, get rid of him. And I almost didn't have any of this. But Ron said, no, he said he can be in the day after. And so I came in with crutches, and that's how I started my work here at KC. And then in 82, so I started KC 76. In 82, they needed somebody to do news and sports in the morning. And I was already doing middays 10 to 3. And I said, I'll do news and sports in the morning, because I knew it would get me into Cardinal games and Blues games with a press pass, and football Cardinal games. And it was just one news and sports cast per morning. So I said, hell, I'll do it. So I volunteered to do that, got my press passes. In 1982, the Cardinals ended up being really good. they go to the World Series. The station says, we need somebody to, cover the Cardinals. So we'll pay for you to travel with the team to Atlanta for the playoffs and then Milwaukee for the World Series. And next thing I knew, I'm on the charter plane flying around the country, going to playoff games and World Series games. One flight I sat next to Stan Musial and his wife Lil, and that was crazy. And then when the season ended, the PA announcer at the time, Joel Myers, who also worked at Casey, by the way, um, he quit, or I don't know what happened. Quit, got fired. I don't remember. And because I put myself in that position, got to know some people, they asked me to audition for the job. I did, and I got it. So, it was the Casey journey that started everything. And it was the little decision there to make sure, to join the morning show, just to do news and sports, to get that press pass, that decision right there, which was, again, no extra pay. I just did it, led to the opportunity that I got with the Cardinals.
Very cool, very cool. So you mentioned that you got to sit next to Stan Musial on the plane. Did he famously play the harmonica for you? Like we've heard so many stories, or did he tell you any of his famous those stories that he sat back, or was it just kind of like, oh, hey, Mr. Musial, I'm John, that kind of cordial thing, or do you have any great Stan stories to tell?
No, I didn't say a word to him. I was scared to death. I was sitting in the window seat. He was in the middle, and his wife Lil was on the aisle, and she just kept talking and talking and talking, and Stan was just kind of like going, "Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Yes, dear." That's all I remember. Him just agreeing with everything she said.
So, I guess going from Stan Musial to like some of the other like our iconic names that you've potentially had the chance to share, the booth with, or at least with those in public relations, like Jack Buck or Mike Shannon, or any of those like iconic voices along with your own. Do you have any stories that you could think of about those guys in particular?
Well, Jack Buck, yeah. I mean, Jack Buck was the reason I got into the business. Hearing Jack Buck do Cardinal games, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And as it turned out, I ended up getting into music radio, rock radio, fell in love with Casey and the audience at Casey and the music at Casey and everything about Casey. I just fell in love with that whole scene because I knew it was a special radio station, So I didn't go in that direction. So then when I got the Cardinal job, guess what? I'm going to meet my idol. And not only did I meet him, but he would interview me, the PA announcer, the organist, um, promotions person, different people who worked around the stadium, ushers once in a while, just, give people a flavor of what it was like to do some of the jobs around the stadium. And he interviewed me on Camo X a couple of times. And I tell you, I was so nervous. I was as nervous as I've ever been in my life, sitting next to Jack Buck, having him interview me on KMOX, which was, at that time, just a monster radio station in the country, And my father recorded those interviews, and I have them on cassette to this day. And they're some of my most prized possessions to have, But Jack was, he's very cordial, very nice, until the story takes an interesting turn. Until I started working, they brought a guy named J.C. Corcoran in to work with me on the morning show here in Casey in 1984. And I started with the Cardinals in 83. So 83 and 84, everything was still cool. But late 84, Corcoran came in and he was going after KMOX hard and Bob Hyland. And I mean, it was the right thing to do, but it was also very controversial, and it put me in a very uncomfortable situation. And so Jack Buck got word that I was, part of a team that was doing this, and he didn't appreciate that. So for quite a while there, Jack quit talking to me, quit interviewing me because, well, I was in the competition, and I understood it. It
Right.
wasn't anything evil or mean on Jack's part. He was, he was supporting his radio station, and somehow, as time went on, Corcoran was at Casey maybe just 2.5 years. As time went on after that, Jack began to realize that, I am separate of that whole situation. I'm my own person. I'm not a J.C. Corcoran type broadcaster, which he's a good hell of a broadcaster. Don't get me wrong. Corcoran's fantastic. but he could go after people and make things uncomfortable. And that's not my style. So after that, things calmed down. We became friends again, and Jack was great to me till the very end. Yeah. Um, and then you asked me about who? Oh, Mike Shannon.
Yeah.
Yeah. D- Yeah, yeah. And it was a similar situation with Mike. Once Jack told Mike, I guess, or whoever told Mike, the same situation, that I was working with this guy who was, you know, going after the KMOX and some of the broadcasters on that radio station. And Mike wouldn't talk to me for quite some time. And then as the years went by, they realized, again, I was my own person, and then Mike was fantastic to me. I had some great laughs with Mike Shannon. Great times. He came on my radio show once, and I tell the Mike Shannon story. I don't know if this is interesting or not, but I'll throw it in anyway.
Please, please.
Okay. Well, I'm doing this radio show outside of Whitey Herzog's restaurant. This is like 1989, and it's on Casey. And I would have different sports guests on every week. It was once a week show. And I had Mike Shannon come on. So Mike comes over. He sits at the table that I'm sitting at, across from me. It's a little wooden table. And he sits down, and he's leaning on the table, and he goes, "John, your table's wobbly." And I said, "Yeah, I know, Mike. It's kind of frustrating. I know, whatever." But so I had a hot dog I was eating there, and I got up to get something. And as I'm walking away, Mike says, "Hey, John, you going to finish that hot dog?" And I'm like, "Oh, Mike, I'm not going to eat it. You can have it." Like, Mike Shannon's going to eat the rest of my freaking hot dog? So as I'm walking away, I see him grab the hot dog. He shakes the hot dog out of the bun, folds the bun over, and put it underneath the table leg and perfectly leveled the table. It was like typical Mike Shannon. And it was awesome. But Mike was great to me, and I got some great interviews with Mike over the years, and I really miss seeing him around the station at the stadium, to be honest with you, and Jack, for that matter.
Absolutely. As the times have changed, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And going from Jack to his son Joe, obviously being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame this year, being the Ford C. Frick Award winner. What are your earliest memories of little Joe Buck and him going into the Hall of Fame now?
Yeah, he was a little kid running around the press box when I started there. Not little. I mean, he was, I guess, like maybe eighth grade, something like that, late junior high. And then I remember he was, I think, maybe 13 years old. He brought his buddies down to the PA, and they would hang out next to me while I was doing the PA down in the Busch Stadium 2 press box. And yeah, he just did a little thing for my 50th anniversary, a video that they aired during my 50th anniversary party they just had for me at the pageant. And he referenced coming around when he was a kid, hanging out in the press box and going down and seeing KC95's John Ulett, because he listened to the radio station, when he was a kid, to me and Corcoran, in the morning show. And yeah, I mean, the way his career developed, and I think he still has a little bit of bad feeling about some people who say that, he was given the job because he was Jack Buck's son. Joe Buck earned every aspect of what he got. If he would have been crappy, he wouldn't have gone anywhere. But he wasn't.
Certainly.
And he was good right out of the box as a young broadcaster. I mean, as a broadcaster myself, I heard him, he was like in college or whatever, and I go, holy crap, he's already good. So, yeah, maybe the name opened some doors. I mean, that probably did happen for him, but those doors close pretty quickly if you can't do the job. And Joe was able to do the job. I love Joe Buck.
I think the name gives you the opportunity, but it's like, you got to take it and run with it. Like you can, when you're Jack Buck's son, that certainly earns you certain opportunities that, Joe Schmo off the street isn't probably going to at least get a second look at. But obviously, like you said, it's up to him to kick that door down fully and say, this is mine. And so, I'm a fan of Joe's as well, as much as I was listening to Jack and my early childhood as well. So it must be a family thing.
Yeah. Well, he heard his dad all his life. He grew up hearing his dad on the radio and hearing his dad do a certain job, probably imitating his dad when he was just at home, as a kid. So, of course, he was going to have something kind of innately built in to be able to pull something like that off. And his sister Julie's a successful broadcaster too, you know. So it's like you say, yeah, there's something in the DNA because Jack was a gifted orator as well as a great broadcaster. He knew exactly what to say in any situation. That's what amazed me about him. That's not an easy thing to be able to do, you know. I mean, how many
Yeah.
times are you with people out in public or whatever, and you're at some certain event and everybody's talking and somebody says something awkward comes up and nobody knows how to say. Jack never met an awkward moment he couldn't handle. And I think some of that is inherited from your parents. Yeah.
I always think back to specifically with Jack Buck, the poem that he read after 9/11, and like you said, always knowing exactly what to say and meeting the moment. Like that's one of those iconic moments that I think back to of him just really understanding how to properly facilitate the moment and getting the most out of it. Obviously, you don't want to make good on a terrible situation that was 9/11, but being able to meet that moment and the way that he was able to just as we are about to celebrate our nation's 250th birthday, stark patriotism moment, I think, in American sports in recent history.
That's why they gave him that assignment, because they knew he could handle it, and he didn't just do it in prepared moments and those type situations, but I'm talking about off the cuff, just ad-libbing. He was very glib. He knew he could come up with the right thing to say even in those situations, when the pressure was on, and there was nothing prepared,
Some people just have that innate gift, and it's incredible. I try to, as best I can in certain moments, to be able to say the right thing, but obviously being a male of the male species, sometimes I put my foot in my mouth and it's like, oh, here we go. But enough about me and some of the people that you've gotten the chance to work side by side. I want to talk about you, right? What does a typical day look like for a public address announcer? When does your day start at the stadium? What kind of preparations do you have to go through and things of that nature?
Well, I mean, first of all, for me, being a PA announcer at Busch Stadium for the Cardinals, that's a part-time job. So, it's not a full-time job by any means. So, for me, it's just in season. And then when the Cardinals are in town, I'll get to the stadium about an hour and a half before the game starts, because we have field ceremonies that we do. And sometimes we have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so about an hour and a half beforehand, get name pronunciations from the other broadcasters of the other team. If I see a player on the field and I have some doubts about if I'm saying his name correctly, I'll go to that player if I can get to him. Because sometimes one broadcaster will say the name one way and another broadcaster will say it a different way. Next thing I know, I'm confused again, Like just recently, it was the Marlins were in town, and Esteury Ruiz was the player, and I go to their broadcast team, their radio broadcast team. One of them says Esteury, and the other one says no, it's Esteury. And then they get an argument over over how to say it, So to give you an example, one broadcaster from the next might just say it differently. So in that situation, I would try to go to the player. Now, I couldn't get into the Miami locker room, so I didn't ask him. So I just flipped a coin and went with Esteury, because that one looked to me to be right. Esteury. That E in there, and I think needed to be emphasized. So that's what I did. But
I always always think back to like John Miller on the broadcast of like ESPN, and most people would call him Eduardo Perez, but it's Eduardo Perez, and so just like
Perez,
you said,
Perez.
Like the different pronunciations is definitely, like, I'm a big stickler for that. Just a little bit about me real quick. Like, I went to school for radio broadcasting too at Lewis and Clark here in Godfrey, Illinois, and so like I'm a big stickler for like pronunciations and stuff like that, and you do a terrific job with that. So I from one to another, I just appreciate the effort and the work that you do to get that right.
Oh, well, thank you. That's another thing that is I've always wrestled with this aspect of it. when you're pronouncing the Latin players' names, like rolling the R and Perez, or Perez. Do I say it like an American, or do
Yeah.
I say it like using like if I were able to speak the Spanish language? And so I say, well, I am not Latin. I don't speak Spanish. It probably is going to sound like not legit coming from me if I try to do that. So I just do it the American way of pronouncing those names. But I don't know. I mean, there are times I wish I could do it the right way. If it's a Latin player, say the name the way way they would say it in Spanish. But I don't have the guts either.
I'm certain that it's probably the furthest thing on their mind when they're stepping up to the plate. Either way, they're up there to do their job. But still, like, I think back to a memory of mine. I wanted to get into this a little bit later. So having the opportunity, like some of the local high schools and colleges and stuff like that, get to come and play a game at Busch Stadium, and they'll sell tickets, and for certain time, because I remember this specifically. It's something I'll never forget. Is like you were still up in the PA booth and you were announcing all of our names as we came onto the field, and you said my name specifically as I was coming out of the dugout, and it was like one of the most surreal moments of my life, obviously growing up as a young Cardinal fan. So
Oh,
I wanted to take the opportunity to just say thank you so much for meeting the moment, making the moment, and giving me a memory in that specific moment that I will never forget. So
oh my God.
I
I,
appreciate that
I,
so
I,
much.
oh, that's such a kind thing for you to bring up. I yeah, I do all the high school games, and I want to get the names right because parents are, the cameras are rolling, and you don't want to have, for the rest of this kid's life or the parents, hey, my kid played at Busch Stadium and the PA announcer blew his name. You don't want that. So, I work real hard to get those names right. That's why I do the games now down on the field right behind home plate. I don't do them from up in the booth
Oh,
because
okay.
I can't be as accurate with who's
Right.
coming to the plate because coaches are notoriously not really good at making sure the right number is matched with the right name on the roster they
Yeah.
give me. And so if I'm right there behind home plate, I can get it fixed real fast and say the name, more accurately, get it,
You know the
get it
uh,
done
the
right.
the Cardinals also do this really cool thing through great clips, and they do PA for a day, and they bring all the kids up, and they get for an inning. What just how much do you feel like that's your opportunity to kind of give back to the community and allow kids to have that unique experience of being able to get to do not necessarily your job, but like get to experience that really really awesome unique experience of like getting to announce a player's name as they walk up. How much do you enjoy that experience and the opportunity to work hand in hand with kids in that role?
Oh, it's exciting. It's exciting for me because I want them to do right. I want them to do well. And so we practice a little bit when they first come down. And I say, you're going to say exactly what I say into that microphone, okay? Because they come down, they're nervous.
For sure.
Some are totally, some have no idea what they're about to do. They're that young, you know. And so I tell them let's practice. So we practice, say leading off, left fielder, such and such. And by the time we go live, they're pretty much ready to go no matter what their age is. And, and I want them to just be themselves. I don't try to, now you got to say it like this, just say it the way you would normally say it. And some kids come in, they're real shy and quiet and laid back. And other kids are come in, they're boisterous as hell. And, just they know what they're trying to do. They've heard Michael Buffer, okay, put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just interesting to see. We never know what we're going to get. We're going to get when a kid comes up there.
Did do
And the
you
ones
have
who know the
any?
game, the ones the most, I think the most fun ones are the ones who know the players and know the game, and really know what they're doing, as opposed to the ones who come up and are just kind of, my mom and dad said I got to do this.
Did you have any kids that like you recalled where you were like, wow, you might have a future in this, like scouting a future prodigy in that situation, or was
Oh
is,
yeah, yeah.
had-
Yeah, there have been a
so
couple have come along, but they're all still pretty young. The best ones I think are about, I'd say between 7, 8, or 9. That's the best age group, I think. But we don't get to, I don't see who's coming until I turn around and see who's coming down the steps. So, they're very randomly picked, and so you never know what you got to work with. But some of them come down. There's been a couple that come down there and they're really good, and you go, wow, man, don't let's get this inning over with. See, this kid's embarrassing me.
So from that to your role with like Cardinals kids and being, Professor U-Man and getting to do that with like Brad Thompson and before that Andy Bennis and Fred Bird, how much fun do you have getting the opportunity to do that? And once again, it's like your opportunity to be able to give back to the community and engage with kids. How important is it for? Do you look at it in a sense like you're passing down the love of baseball, because really that's like one of those outreach opportunities where kids are able to learn about the game and engage with the game and grow into a love of the game?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of fun doing that show, and um, I think you know all that what you said is accurate. I mean, yeah, passing on the love of the game, trying to help young kids understand the game, with the trivia we do and things like that, and uh, you know, doing it with this alter ego, with the glasses and the lab coat and stuff like that. It just it sometimes as I get older, I don't know why, but I think I'd like to be an actor. I never thought about that all my years in the radio business, and I thought as I've gotten older here, I thought, man, I think I'd like to be an actor. It's too late, of course, to go out in Hollywood and be an actor, but this gives me an opportunity to do some of that.
For sure.
So yeah, so I'm kind of acting at times and learning some acting skills, and it's really been eye opening for me in that regard professionally and at the same time, right, yeah, having this connection with another entire new generation of young people who occasionally will recognize me on the street, and if they don't, their parents will, and they'll say, "That's kind of Professor You Man," and then the kid will go, "Yeah, yeah, it is." I don't have the glasses on or anything, but I still got this. You can't miss this head.
For sure.
And so.
Yeah, right there with you.
It is exciting. Yeah, yeah. And the show airs in 7 or 8 different states. And I was at a volleyball game with my daughters in Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm just leaning up against the wall, waiting for my daughter's volleyball game to start. And come these people with their kids. And now again, I'm in Oklahoma. I don't expect anybody to recognize me. I'm not in St. Louis. And they recognized me as Professor U-Man, and I went, "Damn, this show really does get out here." And I am connecting with a whole new generation of young people, and it's been exciting and fun. Yeah, it's fun. It is fun. It's keeping me young, at least mentally, anyway.
Well, you're only as young as you feel, and so by that standard, right. I suppose I'm about 60 years old with the kind of beating that I take in my everyday job. I want to get into, you said you started with the Cardinals in '83. So, like, as we get near the end of the show today, I want to talk to you about some of the more iconic moments that you can remember witnessing live. So, what are some moments in your tenure and your time as Cardinals public address announcer? Do they stick out to you the most that you easily can recall right back to where you were, what the sights were, what the smell, the sound, everything? What were some of those moments as you kind of look back on your career in this position?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, first and foremost, it's Game 6 of the 2011 World Series. It's the greatest game, I think, in Major League Baseball history, certainly in Cardinal history. And to be there, be the PA announcer as that unfolded, is the greatest thrill of my PA announcing life. David Freese's home run. I just bought a photo that he signed with him swinging the bat, looking up at the ball, and the umpires looking at the ball, and the catcher's looking at the ball, and everybody behind home plate is looking up at the ball. I love that photo. I bought it because it is one of the more iconic moments in my entire life, not just my sports life. I mean, birth of kids, and that's right up there with it. And so Yeah, that night was just amazing. I remember walking out of the stadium kind of in a daze, and my daughter called me on the phone. She said, "Dad, I can't believe they won." I said, "Honey, I can't believe what I just saw." Now I quoted Jack Buck there, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
um, not unfortunately. I mean, he's in my DNA.
Really came
And
full
then
circle there.
yeah. I can't believe what I just saw. And so, yeah, that moment, and then of course the next night was also way up there because if they don't win Game 7, everything that happened in Game 6 becomes muted, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that to happen because it was such a special night. When the Cardinals, this some of the things that stick out in my mind as a Cardinal PA announcer didn't happen necessarily at Busch Stadium when I was doing the PA, because I traveled with the team to Milwaukee when Willie McGee made those catches up against the wall in Milwaukee. I was there in Los Angeles when Jack Clark hit that home run in Game 5 to give the Cardinals the lead and then eventually the win in that championship series when Pedro Guerrero slammed his glove down on the ground. I still have that in my mind's eye. I was there in Kansas City when Game 6, when that whole debacle happened with the Don Denkinger call. So those happened away from the radio from Busch Stadium with me being the PA announcer. But those really stick out in my mind now. Also at Busch Stadium, when Rick Ankiel, after he blew up as a pitcher, lost his control, this very talented young man just suddenly couldn't throw strikes. His career was over, and he went down to the minor leagues to become an outfielder, and he made it back. And he came up to play again for the Cardinals, playing center field, and the first game back, he hit a home run. And I tell you, I had tears in my eyes. You talk about a full circle moment. I don't know if anybody's made a movie of his life, but they should. With his father being, selling cocaine and going to jail, and the whole story is incredible. And then for him to make it back to the major leagues and have that moment, that was a special moment for me down there as PA announcer. And being on the field at the end of the 2006 World Series, and Bill DeWitt Senior, Junior, the second, was walking around on the field, and he was like in a daze. It was like he couldn't believe it happened. It was their first World Series championship with him as the owner. And I remember walking around talking to him, and he was kind of like out of it. It was really weird. Can you imagine being the owner of a team that just won the World Series?
I couldn't
It's just,
imagine.
I know the how you must feel after all those years of wanting that to happen in your life. And I don't know. There's so many funny moments and funny things that have also happened while up in the PA booth. And I don't know if I'm answering your question here, but
No, please. Yeah, for sure.
those are the things that come to mind when people ask me about my connection with the Cardinals and that job. Because sometimes some things blur, the lines blur, because those opportunities that I had to go and travel with the team, they didn't come from the Cardinals and the PA job. They came from Casey, from the radio station. Me as the sports director,
Right.
that's the job that put me in position to see those incredible moments.
Well, like you had mentioned with Game 6 in 2011, I always wonder what, like, your perspective in 98, whenever McGuire passes Roger Maris, and, those iconic moments, you're watching flashbulbs pop everywhere. I remember those are like some of the most very vague memories that I have, because I was born in 95. And so, that was the very, very edges of my Cardinal fandom right there. And then, obviously Albert's return back to Busch Stadium in 2017, I was in the stands for that. That was a big moment that I can recall. Albert coming back again in 22. Let's see what else comes to, you mentioned, the 2006 World Series.
Well, I just had another one with Nolan Arenado coming back.
Yeah,
that was special. You're right. I'm glad you brought up the Albert Pujols thing when he came back. That was a really special thing. Um, yeah. You mentioned something else.
Well, just real quickly on the Albert thing, I think, obviously what Albert did...
McGuire.
Yeah.
You mentioned McGuire. Yeah, I want to talk about that. Now, I was, of course, into it like everybody else. But I mean, I get my thrills out of the Cardinals winning, and they weren't good
Yeah.
that year, so that kind of took some of the enjoyment out of it for me. Now, yeah, it was exciting, the battle that he and Sammy Sosa had, but and it was great to be a part of that, and to be announcing his name when he came up and we played the Guns N' Roses song underneath each time, which he never picked. That was just a pick. That was a song that Tony Simakaitis, who's my boss down there, he and I just said, "What do you think we should play when McGuire comes up?" I don't know. What do you think? He said, "Well, I don't know. What about how about Welcome to the Jungle? What do you think?" I said, "Okay, why not?" I mean, that's how accidental that all happened. And uh, so yeah, whenever I would say his name, it was pretty exciting. Yeah.
Well,
But
speaking
again,
of Welcome to the Jungle, you always think back to Carlos Beltran and him walking up to that song as well. So I think his name's pretty synonymous with that song as well. But the one that sticks out in my mind's eye that I wanted to ask you about, because this is such a unique, it was such a unique circumstance or moment, and my dad taped this, was the farewell to Busch Stadium 2, where you were able to announce all of the returning players coming back onto the field from the generations that played there. And to Albert Pujols, the point that I was going to make before you were spontaneously reminded of Mark McGuire, I think what Albert was able to do on the field was, stuff of legends. I think whenever hearing your voice announce him to come to the place, to come to bat, it adds that additional mystique. There's an aura, the way that you announce Albert Pujols, and just like, oh man, I just gave myself goosebumps just saying that. Like, you as Cardinals fans,
yeah,
you remember where you were in these iconic moments and how you felt, and just witnessing these moments that you can then pass down to your kids through generations. Like, again, I to go off of that tangent and back to, what are your memories of that 2005 send off to Bush 2? Because I mean, so many fans today even still say, man, we like Bush 3 and it, like the amenities and everything and the way it's built and the skyline, everything like that, but so many fans miss Bush 2 and the arches and just all of the memories of the intense
yeah,
competition that took place in that stadium. Some might even have called it hallowed ground in baseball heaven, right? So like that, I just
right.
some of your memories of that.
Well, I remember getting emotional about it, and while I was doing the field ceremonies, I mean, and I'm thinking to myself, you can't crack up, you can't cry here, you baby, because it is emotional. It is emotional. There were moments, and not just in that ceremony, but there have been other ceremonies where I've had to. It was all I could do to keep it together. But and I say to I wonder why am I like, why does that have an effect on me? But it's because I realize that it's not just me here that is experiencing this. It's probably being experienced the same way by a bunch of other people right now. And it's because it means something to us. It means something to our lives. It's a part of who we are. Born in, see, here I go. Born, born and raised in the city of St. Louis, being a Cardinal fan from when you came into this world to where you are now, and then I had three children and passing that on to them. I mean, it is heavy, and so things that happen down there, even though it's just a sporting event, even though they're just events that come along as time ticks by, they mean something. And so I get caught up in that sometimes. And I remember for that specific ceremony being caught up in that and just being lucky to be a part of it, to be honest with you. Just as I'm lucky to be a part of all the opening day ceremonies, I get a little emotional sometimes at those, because Jack Buck used to do them and now I'm doing them. And it's heavy sometimes.
I think it's an understatement to say that Cardinals fans this is not only a rite of passage, but you are, like you said, you're born with it. You are born with a love of Cardinals baseball. It is what you do, is in the very fabric and DNA as Cardinals fans, to love this team, to go to St. Louis, to go to Busch Stadium, whichever iteration of it was, and to take in a baseball game and share that moment with your sons and daughters, and to show them what the tradition of being a Cardinals fan is like. And I think that it is so representary of the emotion that you exude and describe, and just how much it means to this fan base, to wear that title, Cardinals fan, as a badge of honor. I am a St. Louis Cardinals fan. I watched the 11-time world champions.
Yeah.
I get the opportunity to root for a team that cares and puts its all into its team and into the community. And I think along those lines, I would be remiss if collectively I didn't just give you a gigantic thank you for being a part of creating those magic moments, for creating that buzz whenever you announce Z Smith or Willie McGee, or just any of the ways that these iconic names, these iconic moments, just the announcement of the name that some people may overlook, but to understand that, like, John Ulett is the cherry on top of that magic moment for all Cardinals fans. Just thank you so much for the years that you've done this, and the moments and memories that you've created for all of us.
Oh, Jake, thank you. You very, very kindly put that. It's very, very sweet of you to say that. I don't know. I just, you talk about, Cardinal fans and people being born with this love of this team. I don't know about you, but when I'm watching the team on the road, and a Cardinal will hit a home run or something, how many Cardinal fans, like in Atlanta last night, how many Cardinal fans all over the stadium jumped up and were hooting and hollering and say, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
We are all over the frickin' country, and I get when I see that, it excites me. And to be connected with the organization the way I've been for all these years. Thank you. I really appreciate what you said, and it means a lot to me to be doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
John, it was a privilege and an honor to speak to, one of the most iconic voices, in my opinion, in the last 30, 40 years for Cardinals baseball. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast and speaking with me. And, obviously you hold a very special place in my heart. And, I will always remember you in this conversation very fondly. Thank you so much for doing this today.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me, Jake.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Viva Alberto's podcast. Don't forget to rate and review and hit that subscribe button so you're notified every Monday morning when a new episode is released. We will talk to you all Thursday for a special midweek edition of the show, when we are joined by Joe Doyle of Overslot.com to discuss the latest buzz 48 hours before the 2026 amateur draft. Have a great day, St. Louis, and let's go Cards!